The alarm bells rang through Kepler Station like a death song. Commander HFY pressed his feathered hands against the control panel as red lights flashed across every screen in the command center. His bird-like eyes moved quickly between the displays, each one showing the same terrible truth. The Vorthan Empire had finally come for them. "How many ships?" HFY asked his communications officer. 20 battlecruisers, sir. Maybe more coming out of hyperspace every few minutes." HFY felt his heart sink. Kepler Station was important to the Galactic Defense Coalition. It sat at the edge of known space, protecting supply lines that fed dozens of peaceful worlds. If it fell, millions of innocent people would be cut off from food, medicine, and protection. The Vorthons knew this. That was why they came with such a large fleet. "Send a message to all coalition forces," HFY ordered. "Tell them we need help. Tell them we need it now." The communications officer nodded and began typing the emergency code. Within minutes, the distress signal would reach every Allied ship within 50 light years. HFY hoped someone would answer. He hoped someone could get here in time. 3 sectors away, Captain Jake Morrison was drinking coffee in the pilot's chair of his cargo ship. The New Horizon was not a pretty vessel. She was built for work, not for show. Her hull was gray metal covered with scratches and dents from years of hauling supplies between Earth colonies, but she was tough and she got the job done. Jake had been flying cargo runs for 15 years. Before that, he spent 10 years in the Earth Navy, fighting pirates and protecting merchant vessels. Now he preferred the quiet life of moving food and supplies from one world to another. It was honest work, and it let him see the galaxy without getting shot at. The ship's communication system beeped. Jake set down his coffee and pressed the receive button. Static filled the bridge for a moment, then cleared into a desperate voice speaking in broken Standard Galactic. "This is Commander HFY of Kepler Station. We are under attack by Vorthon forces. 20 battle cruisers and more coming. We cannot hold them off alone. Any ships in range, please respond. Repeat, this is an emergency. We need immediate military assistance." Jake sat up straight. He knew about the Vorthons. They were a military empire that believed in taking what they wanted by force. They had been quiet for years, but everyone knew they were building up their fleet. Now it seemed they were ready to use it. Jake opened a channel to Earth Command. The response came quickly. "New Horizon, this is Admiral Patricia Wells. We received the same distress call. What is your position?" "About 6 hours from Kepler Station, at maximum speed," Jake replied. "Are you sending the fleet?" There was a long pause. Admiral Wells had been Jake's commanding officer during his Navy years. She was a good leader who cared about doing the right thing. But Jake could hear the frustration in her voice when she finally spoke. "The main fleet is engaged with Vorthan forces in the Centauri sector. They cannot break off without leaving 3 colony worlds defenseless. We have some patrol ships, but they are 2 days away from Kepler Station. So what do we do?" Jake asked. "Let those people die?" "No," Admiral Wells said firmly. "I am putting together an emergency response. Every available ship in the area. That includes you if you are willing." Jake looked around his bridge. His crew consisted of 3 people. Lisa Park was his engineer, a thin woman with short black hair who could fix anything. Danny Carter was his security chief, a big man with scars on his hands from his years as a Marine. Helen Ross was his navigator, an older woman who had been flying ships since before Jake was born. None of them were soldiers anymore. They were just people trying to make a living hauling cargo. But Jake remembered his oath to protect innocent lives. Some things were more important than profit. "Count us in," Jake said. Within an hour, 4 more ships had agreed to join the mission. Captain Ron Blake commanded the Iron Fist, a mining vessel designed to crack asteroids. Dr. Amy Stone ran the Discovery, a research ship studying deep space phenomena. There were also 2 smaller freight haulers whose captains had volunteered to help. None of these were military vessels. They were working ships operated by civilian crews, but they were all that Earth could send. Jake gathered his crew in the small meeting room behind the bridge. Lisa sat at the table cleaning her tools. Danny was checking his sidearm. Helen was studying star charts. You all heard the call, Jake said. Kepler Station is under attack. Earth Command wants us to help. I am not ordering anyone to go. This is volunteer only. Lisa looked up from her tools. How many enemy ships? At least 20. Probably more. Danny whistled softly. What kind? Of weapons do we have? Whatever we can put together, Jake replied. This is not a military operation. We are civilians with civilian ships. Helen folded her star chart. Those people at Kepler Station are civilians too. They did not ask to be attacked. Lisa nodded. I can modify the cargo launcher to fire something other than shipping containers. Give me a few hours. Danny smiled grimly. I still have some military-grade explosives in storage. Was saving them for emergencies. This counts as an emergency, Jake said. Helen, how fast can you get us there? 4 hours if I push the engines, past safety limits. Do it. Jake opened a communication channel to the other ships. Captain Blake's voice came through first. Morrison, my mining charges can punch through asteroid rock. Think they will work on spaceship armor? Only one way to find out, Jake replied. Dr. Stone's voice was calmer. I have some experimental equipment that might be useful. Gravitational, field generators, electromagnetic pulse devices. They were not designed for combat, but maybe we can adapt them. Bring everything you have, Jake said. We are going to need every advantage we can get. The small fleet jumped to hyperspace 30 minutes later. As the stars stretched into lines outside the viewports, Jake wondered what they were getting themselves into. The Vorthons had better ships, better weapons, and more experience in space combat, but they did not know about humans. They did not know that Earth was classified as a death world in the Galactic database. They did not know that humans had learned to survive in conditions that would kill most other species. They did not know that sometimes the best military strategy was not having a strategy at all. Jake smiled as he watched the hyperspace tunnel flow past his ship. The Vorthons wanted a fight. They were about to get one they would never forget. The human ships dropped out of hyperspace near Kepler Station like falling rocks. Jake Morrison watched through his viewport as the massive space station came into view. It was under heavy fire. Bright energy beams cut through the darkness as Vorthon battlecruisers pounded the station's shields. Commander Zexai was in his command center when the new ships appeared on his screens. His communication officer turned to him with confusion. Sir, we have 5 ships coming out of hyperspace, but they do not look like military vessels. Zexai looked at the tactical display. The approaching ships were strange. They had no sleek curves like proper warships. Instead, they looked like flying boxes made of gray metal. Welding marks covered their hulls. Some had equipment bolted to their sides that seemed to serve no military purpose. Are you sure these are our reinforcements? Zexai asked. Before his officer could answer, a voice came over the communication system. It was rough and direct, speaking in accented Standard Galactic. Kepler Station, this is Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel New Horizon. We received your distress call. What do you need us to do? Zexai stared at the screen. These crude ships were supposed to help them fight 20 Vorthon battle cruisers? Each enemy vessel was 3 times larger than the biggest human ship. The Vorthon fleet had energy shields, plasma cannons, and fighters that could move faster than most species could think. Captain Morrison? Zexai replied carefully. We appreciate your response, but perhaps you should wait for proper military vessels to arrive. Jake's voice came back immediately. How long until proper military vessels get here? At least 2 days. Then we are what you got. Now tell me where you want us to shoot. On the Vorthon flagship, General Korth watched the human ships approach with amusement. The enemy vessels looked like cargo haulers and mining equipment. Their hulls showed no weapon ports. Their energy signatures were weak compared to proper warships. What are those things? Asked his tactical officer. Scrap metal, General Korth replied. Some primitive species trying to play at war. Ignore them. Focus fire on the station's main reactor. The Vorthon ships continued their attack on Kepler Station. Plasma beams hammered the station's shields while fighters swooped in to destroy defensive guns. The station was losing the battle and everyone knew it. Jake Morrison studied the enemy formation through his ship's sensors. The Vorthan vessels moved in perfect patterns, maintaining optimal firing distance while protecting each other with overlapping shield coverage. It was textbook military strategy. It was also exactly what Jake expected. "Lisa, are the cargo launchers ready?" Jake asked over the intercom. "Ready and loaded," came Lisa Park's voice from the engineering section. "I modified them to fire at twice normal speed. Also rigged up some special packages for our friends out there." "Danny, what about those explosives?" Danny Carter's voice was cheerful. "Pack them into shipping containers. Each one has enough firepower to crack an asteroid. Should make a nice surprise." Jake opened a channel to the other human ships. "All vessels, this is Morrison. Remember, these guys expect us to fight like everyone else. Energy weapons at long range, shields up, nice clean formations. We are not going to do that." Captain Ron Blake's voice came from the mining ship Iron Fist. "My ore crackers are loaded and ready. These should punch through their armor like it was paper." Dr. Amy Stone spoke from the research vessel Discovery. "I have activated my gravitational field generators. They should disrupt enemy targeting systems." Jake smiled. "All right, people, let's show them how humans fight." The New Horizon accelerated toward the Vorthan fleet at a speed that made Commander Zexhai gasp. No military vessel would approach enemy ships that fast. It was suicide. The ship would be destroyed before it could fire a single shot. But Jake Morrison was not planning to fight like a military vessel. The first shipping container launched from the New Horizon when the ship was still 2 kilometers from the nearest Vorthan cruiser. The container was moving so fast it appeared as a blur on the enemy sensors. The Vorthan shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did not even slow it down. The container smashed into the cruiser's hull and exploded. The blast tore a hole 15 meters wide through the enemy ship's armor. Atmosphere rushed out into space as the Vorthan vessel shuddered and began to list to one side. General Korth stared at his tactical display in shock. "What just happened?" "The primitive ship fired some kind of solid projectile," his officer replied. "Our shields did not stop it. Impossible. No one uses kinetic weapons in space combat." A second explosion rocked another Vorthan cruiser as Captain Blake's mining charges found their target. The ore crackers, designed to break apart asteroids, carved through the enemy ship's hull like it was made of wood. Emergency lights flashed as the cruiser's main reactor went offline. Dr. Stone's research vessel moved between the enemy ships like a ghost. Her gravitational field generators created spatial distortions that threw Vorthan fighters off course. Pilots who had been flying in perfect formation suddenly found themselves tumbling through space, unable to control their craft. The human ships moved in ways that defied all military logic. They made turns that should have killed their crews. They flew through debris fields that should have destroyed their hulls. They ignored enemy fire and charged straight at targets that were 10 times their size. Jake Morrison brought the New Horizon alongside a Vorthan battlecruiser and fired 3 more containers directly into the enemy ship's engine section. The explosion sent shockwaves through the entire vessel. The cruiser's main engines shut down, leaving it drifting helplessly in space. "What kind of warriors are these?" General Korth demanded. "They fight like madmen." His tactical officer was studying sensor readings. "Sir, their ships are taking damage that should disable them, but they keep fighting." It was true. The human vessels showed hull breaches, radiation leaks, and system failures that would force any sane crew to retreat. But the humans just kept coming. They sealed hull breaches with emergency patches and rerouted power around damaged systems. When their main weapons failed, they improvised new ones. Lisa Park had turned the New Horizon's waste disposal system into a weapon, firing garbage and scrap metal at enemy ships. The debris moved too fast for point defense systems to stop, and too randomly for targeting computers to predict. Helen Ross performed a maneuver that made every alien observer hold their breath. She flew her small freighter lightning strike through the gap between 2 Vorthan cruisers, then used the ship's emergency thrusters to spin around and fire missiles at both targets simultaneously. The missiles were not military weapons. They were mining explosives with guidance systems cobbled together from navigation equipment. But they worked. Both enemy ships took critical damage to their shield generators. Commander Zexhai watched the battle from his command center with growing amazement. The human ships were winning. 5 civilian vessels were defeating a fleet that had been built to conquer worlds. "Sir," his communication officer said, "the humans are requesting permission to board damaged enemy vessels." "Board them?" Zexhai asked. "What for?" Jake Morrison's voice came over the channel. "To make sure they stay down, and to see if they have any useful equipment we can borrow." General Korth realized that his perfect battle plan was falling apart. These humans did not fight by any rules he understood. They took risks that bordered on insanity and somehow made those risks work in their favor. "All ships fall back to defensive formation," he ordered. "We need to reassess the situation." But the humans did not give him time to think. They pressed their attack with relentless determination, turning what should have been an easy victory into a nightmare of explosions and chaos. General Korth stared at his battle display as 3 more of his cruisers went dark. The human ships moved through his formation like wild animals, striking without warning and disappearing before his gunners could target them. This was not how space battles were supposed to work. "How many ships have we lost?" he asked his tactical officer. 7 cruisers destroyed, 4 more with critical damage," came the reply. "The humans have lost no vessels, though all of them show heavy damage." Korth could not understand it. The human ships had holes in their hulls. Their life support systems were failing. Radiation was leaking from their damaged reactors. Any civilized crew would have surrendered by now. But these humans kept fighting as if nothing was wrong. Captain Ron Blake was having the time of his life. His mining ship Iron Fist had taken 3 direct hits from plasma cannons, but Lisa Park had taught him some tricks about emergency repairs. He sealed the hull breaches with metal plates and mining foam. When his main engines died, he switched to backup thrusters designed for asteroid work. "This is better than cracking rocks," he told his crew as they loaded another mining charge. "At least these targets shoot back." The Iron Fist accelerated toward a damaged Vorthan cruiser. The enemy ship was trying to retreat, but its engines were only working at half power. Blake lined up his shot and fired 3 ore crackers in sequence. The first charge punched through the cruiser's rear armor. The second one destroyed the ship's main reactor. The third one was just for fun. The Vorthan vessel broke apart in a ball of fire and twisted metal. Helen Ross was performing miracles with her freighter, Lightning Strike. The old ship was not built for combat, but Helen had been flying for 40 years. She knew every trick, in the book and a few that were not in any book. She dove toward the surface of Kepler Station, using the station's structure to block enemy fire. Then she pulled up at the last second and fired a spread of improvised missiles at a group of Vorthan fighters. The missiles were made from emergency flares with explosive charges strapped to them. They were not very accurate, but there were a lot of them. 3 fighters exploded. 2 more collided with each other, trying to avoid the chaotic missile swarm. The remaining fighters broke formation and fled. "Helen, that was insane," Jake Morrison said over the communication channel. "Thank you," Helen replied calmly. "I do. I best work when people are shooting at me." Dr. Amy Stone had turned her research vessel into a weapon of science. The Discovery carried equipment designed to study gravity waves and electromagnetic fields. Amy discovered that the same tools could be used to create havoc among enemy ships. She activated her gravitational field generator near a cluster of Vorthan fighters. The artificial gravity field grabbed the small ships and pulled them together, like magnets. The pilots tried to escape, but their engines were not powerful enough to break free. Amy waited until all 6 fighters were trapped in the gravity well. Then she released the field. The fighters scattered in all directions, their pilots too dizzy and confused to fight effectively. "Fascinating," Amy said to herself. "I should write a paper about this." The human tactics were driving the Vorthans to desperation. These primitive ships refused to follow the rules of civilized warfare. They used weapons that were not supposed to work. They made maneuvers that should have been impossible. Worst of all, they seemed to enjoy the chaos they were creating. Danny Carter had an idea that was crazy even by human standards. He suited up in his old marine armor and grabbed a cutting torch designed for ship repairs. Then he convinced Jake to bring the New Horizon alongside a damaged Vorthan cruiser. "You want to do what?" Jake asked. "Board their ship," Danny replied. Cut through their hull and take out their command center from the inside. That is suicide. Maybe, but it will definitely surprise them. Jake thought about it for exactly 3 seconds. Do it. The New Horizon matched course and speed with the Vorthan cruiser. Danny used the ship's cargo crane to swing across the gap between vessels. He landed on the enemy hull with a metallic clang that echoed through both ships. The Vorthans had never seen anything like it. Enemy soldiers did not cut their way into spaceships during battle. It was too dangerous. The vacuum of space would kill anyone who tried such a thing. But Danny Carter had fought in conditions that would terrify most aliens. He had trained in zero gravity, underwater, and in toxic atmospheres. A little vacuum did not scare him. He cut through the cruiser's hull in less than 2 minutes. Emergency lights flashed as atmosphere rushed out of the ship. Danny pulled himself through the hole and found himself face to face with 6 very surprised Vorthan soldiers. The fight was over quickly. The Vorthans were good with energy weapons and battlefield tactics, but they had never faced someone who used a plasma torch as a combat weapon. Danny fought his way to the bridge and destroyed the ship's main computer with a thermite charge. The Vorthan cruiser drifted powerless through space, its crew trapped inside without life support or communications. General Korth watched this happen on his tactical display and felt something he had never experienced before: fear. These humans did not fight like soldiers. They fought like demons who had crawled out of some nightmare realm where physics and common sense did not apply. "Sir," his communication officer said, "we are receiving a transmission from the human." "Commander, put it through." Jake Morrison's voice filled the bridge of the Vorthan flagship. "General Korth, this is Captain Morrison. I think we need to talk." "What do you want?" Korth replied. "Surrender. You are losing this fight, and we are just getting started." Korth looked at his tactical display. He had started the battle with 23 ships. Now he had 14 vessels still capable of fighting, and several of those were badly damaged. The humans had 5 ships that looked like they had been through a scrapyard, but all of them were still fighting. "You cannot defeat the entire Vorthan fleet with 5 cargo ships," Korth said. "Watch us," Jake replied. "We have been fighting on a world that tries to kill us every day since we were born. You think a few spaceships are going to stop us?" As if to prove his point, Helen Ross chose that moment to ram her freighter into the side of a Vorthan destroyer. The collision should have destroyed both ships, but somehow Helen had calculated the angle perfectly. The destroyer's hull cracked, open like an egg, while the lightning strike bounced off with only minor damage. Lisa Park was already working on repairs before the debris stopped flying. Commander Zexhai watched from Kepler Station as the impossible battle continued. The humans were winning through sheer determination and complete disregard for their own safety. They treated battle damage like a minor inconvenience and enemy fire like a challenge to overcome. "Sir," his communication officer said, "I am reading massive energy signatures from the human ships. They appear to be overloading their reactors." Zexhai felt his blood turn cold. "They are going to use their ships as bombs?" The answer came as Amy Stone's research vessel Discovery accelerated toward the center of the Vorthan formation with her reactor running far beyond safe limits. But instead of exploding, she released a massive electromagnetic pulse that shut down every electronic system within 10 kilometers. 6 Vorthan ships went dark simultaneously, their crews helpless as life support failed and weapons went offline. General Korth realized that he was not fighting a military engagement. He was fighting a species that treated warfare as just another survival challenge, and they were very good at surviving. General Korth stood on the bridge of his flagship as another one of his cruisers exploded in the distance. The human ships continued their relentless attack, moving through space like they owned it. His tactical officer was pale with fear. "Sir, we have lost 16 ships. Only 7 remain operational." Korth could not believe what he was seeing. 5 primitive cargo vessels had destroyed most of his fleet. These humans fought with a fury that defied all military logic. They ignored damage that would cripple normal ships and kept coming back for more. "What kind of warriors are these?" Korth demanded. "No civilized species fights like this." "Jake." Morrison heard the question over the open communication channel. He was sitting in his damaged pilot's chair. breathing recycled air that smelled like smoke and ozone. The New Horizon had taken so much damage that most of her systems were held together with emergency patches and prayer. "You want to know what kind of warriors we are?" Jake said into his microphone. "Let me tell you about Earth." Jake opened a data channel and transmitted files that made every alien on both sides stop what they were doing. The information that flowed across their screens was impossible to believe. Commander Zexhai read the data with growing horror. Class 12. Death World designation, extreme weather patterns, dangerous predators, unstable geology, toxic atmosphere, variations, recommended for immediate quarantine. The Galactic database classified worlds based on how dangerous they were to intelligent life. Class 1 worlds were garden paradises where nothing could hurt you. Class 12 worlds were places where everything tried to kill you every single day. "Impossible," General Korth whispered. "No intelligent species could evolve on a Class 12 world." "We did not just evolve there," Jake replied cheerfully. "We thrived there. Earth taught us that the universe does not care if you live or die, so we learned to care for ourselves." The transmission continued with images that made alien viewers sick. Humans living through storms that could tear apart buildings. Humans surviving in deserts where the temperature could kill most species in minutes. Humans climbing mountains where the air was too thin to breathe. "Your homeworld has predators that hunt in packs," Dr. Amy Stone added from her research vessel. "Ours has predators that are bigger than your spaceships. We learned to hunt them for food." Lisa Park's voice came over the channel as she worked on another impossible repair. "Your cities are built in safe places. Our cities get hit by earthquakes, floods, and storms that would destroy your entire civilization. We just rebuild them stronger." The aliens began to understand why the humans fought so strangely. On a world where survival was never guaranteed, you learned to use every advantage you could find. You learned to fix things that should not be fixable. You learned to keep going when any sane person would give up. Helen Ross demonstrated this perfectly by flying her damaged freighter straight through an asteroid field while chasing a fleeing Vorthan destroyer. The asteroids should have smashed her ship to pieces. But Helen had been flying through dangerous space for decades. She knew how to read the patterns and find the safe paths. The destroyer tried to follow her course and immediately crashed into a large asteroid. Helen emerged from the field without a scratch and continued hunting her next target. Danny Carter had boarded 2 more enemy ships and was working on a third. The Vorthan crews had started abandoning their vessels rather than face him in close combat. They had never encountered someone who used industrial equipment as weapons and treated vacuum exposure like a minor inconvenience. "This is madness," General Korth said. "Your species should have died out millions of years ago." "We almost did," Jake admitted. "Ice ages, volcanic eruptions, asteroid impacts, plagues, wars. Earth threw everything it had at us. But we are still here. We are still fighting, and we are still winning." Captain Ron Blake proved this by ramming his mining ship directly into Korth's flagship. The collision should have destroyed both vessels, but Blake had reinforced his hull with mining equipment and extra armor plating. The Iron Fist punched through the flagship's shields and buried itself in the enemy ship's hull. Blake and his crew poured through the breach, carrying mining tools and explosives. They fought their way to the engine room and began systematically, destroying every system they could find. The Vorthan flagship shuddered and began to lose power. General Korth found himself trapped on a dying ship, facing enemies who treated impossible odds as just another day at work. His remaining vessels were scattered and demoralized. Half his crews had abandoned their posts rather than face the relentless human assault. "I surrender," Korth said over the communication channel. "Smart choice," Jake replied. "Tell your remaining ships to stand down." The battle was over. The Vorthan fleet, which had seemed unstoppable just hours before, was reduced to smoking wreckage floating in space. The humans had won through sheer determination and a complete refusal to accept defeat. Commander Zexhai sent a message to Earth. "Command. Admiral Wells, this is Commander Zexhai of Kepler Station. Your reinforcements have arrived and achieved total victory. Though I must ask, what exactly did you send us?" Admiral Patricia Wells received the message at Earth Command headquarters. She smiled as she read the battle reports. She had known Jake Morrison during his Navy days and remembered his tendency to find creative solutions to impossible problems. "We sent you humans," she replied. "We are what you might call a death world species. We have been fighting for survival since the day we were born. Today, we fought for you." The news of the battle spread across the galaxy within hours. Every species that heard the story had the same reaction, a mixture of amazement and terror. The humans had defeated a superior enemy through tactics that no civilized species would consider. Some worlds began requesting human protection. Others started building defenses against potential human invasion. Everyone wanted to know more about this strange species that treated warfare like a survival game. Jake Morrison docked his battered ship at Kepler Station for repairs. As he walked through the corridors, alien civilians stared at him with expressions of awe and fear. He looked like any other human. 2 arms, 2 legs, nothing special. But everyone knew he was a member of the species that had just redefined space combat. "Captain Morrison," Commander HFY said when they met in the station's command center. "On behalf of the Galactic Defense Coalition, I want to thank you. But I have to ask, are all humans like you?" Jake thought about it for a moment. He thought about the billions of people back on Earth, living their lives on a world that tried to kill them every day. He thought about the human colonies scattered across the galaxy, thriving in places where other species feared to go. "Pretty much," he said finally. "We are all products of the same world, the same struggle, the same refusal to give up." Commander HFY nodded slowly. "Then I think the galaxy is going to be a very different place from now on." Jake smiled. "Count on it." The human ships departed Kepler Station a few days later, heading back to their normal lives of hauling cargo and mining asteroids. But the galaxy would never forget the day that 5 civilian vessels had defeated an entire battle fleet. Word spread that Earth was not just another member of the galactic community. It was a death world that had produced a species of warriors unlike
anything the universe had ever seen. The humans had arrived and nothing would ever be the same.